Alright YouTubes, in today's video it's going to be the painting of the front end of the Porsche 718 Cayman GT4. So if you want to see the previous videos to this, the preparation and the painting and the parts, go and check those videos out. So we're on to the front end now. So obviously I painted the parts separately because I couldn't fit them all in the booth. And the first thing I'm going to do is put some breakthrough primer over little cut throughs on the edges. So I've only just been recently using this stuff. So it's an aerosol called Spot Sealer made by Mipa, and it's just for breakthroughs. And I'll tell you what, it's for an aerosol product, it's fantastic. I don't like putting wet on wet over panels if I can help it, you know, just for breakthroughs. You know, wet on wet's really for new panels, and I do it on bumpers and stuff like that occasionally, but I don't like putting it on a panel that I'm going to be painting, because it will add some texture and it will have a bit of an effect on my final outcome. So I want this job to be as best as it can be. So I give it everything, this job. I really took my time and made sure every part of this job, every little detail was taken into consideration. So if you wet and wet over a panel for breakthroughs or to seal a repairing that's been primed, if you've got it between a couple of panels, you've got soft edge masking, stuff like that, you're going to get that wet and wet always creeps further than your colour and your base coat. So you pull your masking off, and I've seen it time and time again, I've had it myself time and time again, there's always a bit of a primer line, and there's ways around it. You can angle away from the underside of your soft edge and stuff like that. You can put a double soft edge on so it doesn't go as far, but I find it annoying. And if I use aerosols, just normal 1K aerosols, they spit, they leave rough edges, and I end up nibbing them and all stuff like that. This spot sealer is basically like a wet on wet in a can, but it's almost transparent. It's got a slight little grey hue to it, so there's no risk of it bleeding under any masking. It goes on silky smooth. There's virtually no overspray from it, so that it keeps the overspray really, really small, and you can't feel it or see it or anything. I've been using it on a few jobs now, and it really seals in something. And like I say, it's like a wet on wet in an aerosol can. As long as you get it on there nice and clean, there's no nibbing, and it's just quick and easy, and it just saves another process. I highly recommend it. So spot sealer's on there. I'll give that 5-8 minutes to flush off, and the first thing I'm going to be doing is putting a coat of blender coat over it. So the Mipa blender coat, it's not actually a transparent base coat as such. It is transparent, but it's not the same material as such as the base coat tint is on the scheme. There is a clear base coat on the scheme for the pearl coats and the mid coats and stuff like that. But this Mipa blender coat is a separate product on its own, and it does behave differently to, you know, a transparent base coat, like the transparent base coat that's on the scheme. It really works well. I'm not sure what it's made of, but it's definitely different to the base coats. And one thing with it, it's only happened to me once where I had to try and nib it, and yeah, it almost felt rubbery. It didn't like nibbing very well, whereas this Mipa water-based base coat nibs really well once it's dried right through. It dusts up when you nib it, and the blender coat isn't like that. So yeah, don't know what it's made of, but it's different to the water-based coat. So yeah, we give it a coat of blender coat, and they recommend to put it over the whole job. So over your repair primer areas, not just in your blending zones, you put one skinny flowing coat on there and dry it right out, and it dries out really quick. Doesn't take long. Get the air blowers on there, and it doesn't take long to dry out at all. And what it will do, it will help fill in all the little micro scratches, because when you're trying to do blends in high metallic colours, that them thin coats of base coat where the blend area is can then reflect the prepping scratches, your blending scratches, you know, 800 grit, 1000 grit, whatever way you prepare your blend panels, it can highlight that, and then it highlights the metallic in that area as well. So it helps with that. And it's really good. I get really nice jobs when I've put blender coat over it, so I am inclined to put it over jobs that don't really require blender coat, just because it makes a nice transition of the base coat, and it can fill in some of these micro scratches which can show up sometimes. So the gun I'm using, sorry if I sound like a parrot repeating myself, because I say it pretty much in every video, so all the regular viewers, apologies if you've got to hear this again and again, because I haven't got any other spray guns apart from Satajet. So my base coat gun and what I'm putting this blender coat on with is an X5500 with a 1.2i setup, and it's a HVLP. So HVLP is their base coat gun, which Sata recommend for applying water base coat and solvent base coat. So I put this on at normal pressure that I would put my covering coats on of this Mipa water base. So it's a 2 bar, and like I say, it's just one thin skinny coat over the whole lot. So a few blends going on this job. Obviously the wings are there for blending and for the stone chips that were at the front of it. So I've got to try and keep the colour away from the back edge of that wing to the door, and blend all through the middle of that wing. So a few blends in different places, not a straightforward straight blend halfway up a panel. I'm blending in different areas. If you haven't seen the previous videos to this job, there's a bit of a colour issue with it, with the car and the plastics being different size metallic. I've had to do a bit of work correcting it and changing formulas and stuff like that, but I'll explain all that later on. So this job's become a bit of a trilogy of videos. I didn't expect it to go across 3 videos. I don't really plan my videos, to be honest with you. I just keep recording, and then when I get to the editing stage, they're the length that they are. I do my best to keep them to a sensible length. So that's why this has been split into 3. It's a nice car. We give everything, me and Reese, on this to make sure it was as good as it can be. And I wanted to show as much detail of this job, you know, from start to finish. We enjoy cars, me and Reese. We love cars, and so when something nice and special like this car is, I wanted to show as much detail of this job as possible. So straight on with the base coat. So run the blender coat through my base coat gun. There's no need to clean it out. Just get the starter pot to suck out any excess that's in the gun, and then put the colour straight on it. So carry on with 2 bar pressure, and the first coat that goes on there is a half coat. So on a normal covering colour, this system covers really well, this base coat. It's got really high coverage. You put sort of a half coat on first, dry that out, and then there's two ways of doing it. You can do 2 medium coats as individual coats and dry in between them, or like I do when I know it's going to cover normally, I dry that first half coat out, and then my second application is my coverage coat, which is like 2 medium wet coats back to back on top of each other. So I start off marking out where I'm going to blend up that bonnet, so I do a bit of flicking out there. Same here, just sort of taking my time really, just getting that half coat on, which is, you know, it's a stabilizing coat. That's what that half coat is for, because this system doesn't like to go on thick and wet, so it needs that half coat. If you put it on a bit too wet, it can pick up contamination. So I sort of just mark out where I'm going to be blending really. You can do reverse blends. I sort of go a bit further each time. So just put in that half a coat in my blend zone, and then I join into that with the first coat. Bit forgiving on this job with that feature line that angles back down to the bonnet, the back edge of that bonnet. That's a good place to get my blend, to get it sort of under that feature line, a different angle. So, you know, if you've got anything that may show up as a blend showing, that's a good place that you can hide it. And with a different light angle, even if there was any issues of it grinning through, it's going to be hard to spot there. Job like this is multiple blends on one panel really, so you've got a few different blend zones. I'm going straight through the halfway point of the wing, on the face of it and the top, and then blending up on that bonnet corner. So the way I'm applying this second second application, whatever you want to call it, this is a good example of how I do it. So it's just a double pass straight over. The second pass, I must admit, I'd probably retract the gun a little bit. Don't put the same sort of film on as the first pass. So it's probably a little bit lighter the second pass over, and it's almost like dropping into it a little bit, so it can even the metallics up a bit better as well. This base coat, metallics, when it's wet and when you're applying it, it looks textured and patchy. And I've said this in previous videos, it threw me for a little while. I ended up over applying it, trying to think that I've got to even the film up, because the film looks, if you catch the sheen of the film of the base coat, that looks textured. You know, a lot of these water bases, the one visits, they look smooth like gloss, you know, they look smooth like top coat. So when you look at this and it doesn't look even, and it is even because you've done even passes over it, but it doesn't look even. It's almost like your gun's not spraying properly, and it looks textured and it looks really patchy when it's wet. So I found I was overloading it quite often, and I was having drying issues. And it doesn't need to be a smooth film while it's wet. You just basically got to ignore how patchy it looks. If you know that you've gone over it with the same consistency, you just got to ignore how it looks when it's wet. And it's unbelievable how different it looks when it's dried. Yeah, there will be a bit of cloudiness in there, but the film, the dry film on there is like silk. You can't feel any metallic. Where you're blending and flicking, so you get all your blending done now. So I've got all that application coverage on that one half of that car now. So that half a bonnet and all that wing and all my blending and everything is done. And then I move on to the second half and do exactly the same. Get all your flicking out done. The metallic just doesn't stand up in your blend zones, so you don't have to worry about, you know, maybe doing a bit more flicking out. Obviously I'm feathering the trigger on the blending like you would on solvent. You know, the application wise, with technique of your spray gun is very, very similar to solvent, the way you apply it, but it's just the way it looks as it comes out the gun and as it lays on the panel is totally different. So like I say, get all that coverage on there, get all that blending done, and then get it dry. So on this scheme and other water-based schemes that I've used, and most of them will have it, that you'll have a tint on there called tone controller or flop controller. There's normally one on a water-based system, and that's sort of that it's unbelievable what it's sort of like milky and transparent, so it doesn't really affect colour, but it affects the way the light reflects off of colour, especially high metallic colours and silvers and stuff like that, because it's like a wax binder, and adding more or removing more will change the angle of how the metallic sits. So I'm not a chemist, so I can't be exact with it, but speaking to paint reps, and they've played about with it, and when you do recalculations with the Spectro, the software knows about this, the way that it takes images, it reflects the way that the metallic sits, the angle it sits, so it changes the flop controller. So a flop controller can change the appearance of a colour in metallic, and make it look a different colour because of the way the light reflects off of it, so the way it suspends the metallic. So yeah, that's something I've learned pretty recently about flop controllers and tone controllers. That's what that does. And I found when I do recalculations and it's changed that, it really improves the way it matches when you get the spray out put next to the image, you know, the panel that you've taken. It makes the metallic look a lot better. So drop coat on this, it's either 1 or 2. You drop it down to 1 bar, it's fully dried out, I haven't tap ragged it. I go in with a drop coat, and I drop coat pretty much on the big areas like the bonnet, not in my blending zones, on full trigger, and almost double your distance, and just like you would a solvent base coat, you drop it on there. Again, it can look a little bit patchy when it's wet, and the 1 bar, it looks like it's spat on there, and when it's wet you think, oh, it don't look right. But you let that dry out. It's best not to blow it, especially on high metallic colours like silver. It's best not to blow it and let it dry naturally, because apparently it can start moving the metallic around a little bit. And I either give it 1 or 2. They say 1 or 2. If you put 2 on, you might get a bit more evenness, but you can lighten the shade. So if you was edge to edge in something and you needed it to be slightly lighter tone, you can give the base coat a second drop coat, which will lighten it. So I give it one drop coat. I wanted to do 2 on this, just to be on the safe side of everything looking even and nice. And I pretty much waited for most of it to dry, and I did dry it, blow dry it with the gun at 1 bar. So you just flick it over the whole lot, and I sort of come back on myself in between my overlaps in a way, and drop coat in your blend area, so where you've done all your flicking in your application coat, drop coat over that as well, and that again will give you a little bit of hiding power if there is a bit of a halo where you've done some blending. Right, so we're on to the clear coat. So the clear coat I'm using on this job is Mipa CC14 Thicks Tropic. So the Thicks Tropic properties of this clear coat helps it not to sag, so it's got anti-sag properties. It's really resistant to solvent boil, and it can be applied in high layers and high film builds, and it's really resistant to building up on edges. So when you get like the stamping or, you know, fat edges that build up naturally occur on the edges of panels, it really reduces that as well, which is good. I like to put a lot on a bonnet. I like to get a nice wet film on a bonnet, so when you've got a bonnet and a wing together. Sometimes if you're putting a heavy layer on the bonnet, you're going to get a bit of a build up on the edge of a wing where it meets the bonnet. So it's really good for this type of work. And the clear coat's fantastic. It's got a really good gloss. I wouldn't say it was like ultimate gloss. There will be clears out there that have got better gloss levels to this clear, but it's still a real good gloss level. You can get a real good factory looking finish out of it, and it flat and polishes lovely, polishes really nice, and it is a bit different to your standard types of high solid clears. There's other thick Tropic clear coats on the market, I believe. This is the only one I've ever used, the only one I've ever tried, so I can't speak for others, but it does what it's supposed to do, and it gives you a bit more confidence, takes away, you know, a worry that you could have, you know, when you're trying to do a nice job, that we all worry about getting runs on jobs, especially when you've got a bit of pressure on a job and you want to get the best finish out the gun that you can. It's sort of a bit of a safety net, this clear coat. So I applied the first coat, not as wet as the second coat, but it's got to be closed over, so more of a sort of medium coat, skinny and flat. Get that first one on there flat. So gun I'm using my Satajet X5500 with a 1.20 setup, and that's an RP, so it's quite a fast gun, this one. It's great for jobs like this. It is my go-to gun. I do like the O setup. It can be a little bit harder to handle than maybe the CC gun, and now I've got a Satajet X with a 1.2i. They do behave differently. So I get that first coat on there at 2 bar. So I set it at 2 bar for the first coat, and then normally I drop down to about 1.9 bar for the second coat. So onto the second coat now. A bit slower, a bit more film build on there for the second coat, and try and get that finish to look as natural and as factory looking as possible. So I'm going to leave it there now for the voiceover. Watch the rest of the clear coat going down. I'm getting sick of my own voice, and there's plenty more waffling in the rest of this video. So I just want to say a massive thanks to everyone that's been watching my videos. I really appreciate it. If you're new to my channel and you like the content, could I ask you to like, share and subscribe to help my channel grow? I'd really appreciate it. I'd love to get my channel up to higher numbers with the subscribers and the views, but I just want to say a massive thanks. Really appreciate it. We'll see you again soon. Look after yourselves. YouTubes, that's the Porsche Cayman GT4 all finished. And I'll give you a look in the booth for the minute, because it's absolutely lashing it down with rain, and I don't want to get it wet because it's all been polished and cleaned up a bit. So I'll give you a quick look. Pleased with the results. Bit of flat and polishing. There was the odd nib here and there that I had to do. I ran the machine polisher all over it. So 2-stage machine polish, heavy cut, and then ultra fine cut with a DA. Come out nice, blended in really well. I'm really pleased with the blending. The colour was a bit of a task. I ended up correcting it with our Spectro. The shade was okay on the colour chip we had, but the metallic was wrong. So I corrected it, got the shade better. The main silver in this colour on my system was like a medium to fine silver, and this is quite coarse on this car, so I swapped it out for a coarser one, and it did improve it to just give it a bit more of a grainier look. It's gone in well, blended really well, so sort of blended around this area, blended up the top of the bonnet, and the same on this side, coloured sort of all around this area, blended here and blended up here, and it's blended in lovely. I'm really pleased with the blend. It's pretty seamless, it does blend really well. And then yeah, bumpers come out really nice. Number plate plinth hole's gone, no stone chips. Really pleased with how it's come out. Mipa CC14 clear coat on this, and it's got that factory look. I think it looks just right. I'm pleased with it. Obviously the whole front end, side skirts, and the colour can look a little bit out in these lights, but when you catch it with the light reflecting, it still is a little bit fine. But the plastics were completely different to the body on this car. I don't know if you can sort of notice it there, where this to that boot, I know it's a different light angle, but the metallic is completely different to the body on the spoilers. On the spoilers and on all the plastics, it was it was a bit bizarre, to be honest. So here's a look at the bumper. All come out really clean. Happy with the finish has come out nice, and that's pretty much out the gun. There was like one, maybe two little nibs in that. Side skirts come out nice and clean, and again finish I'm really happy with. It all looks factory. It's not too flat and it's not too orange peely. I'll give you a good look over the front of it. All the stone chips gone, nice edges. Where I try to leave a little bit of blend room on the bonnet, it just gives me a bit of a safe zone that I don't start. If I've got a colour right up to here, I'm starting to blend in here, that I'm going to get an issue with colour here. So I always like to leave myself, you know, a good decent bit of room. There was a chip just around this area, so I just managed to give myself a bit of blend room on that side. There was one on this side, but it was a bit further down. So I managed to catch that as well without getting colour too far up to the doors, which can always be an issue on, depending on what vehicle it is, can be an issue when you haven't got a lot of space between the bonnet and the door. So you know, if you're using a wing as a blend panel only, you can run into issues with, you know, having a real short space to blend. I'm really happy with that CC14. It lays down really nice, really factory looking. The metallic on this Mipa system, the silvers with the drop coating, just no patchiness at all. Lays down really smooth, really even distribution of the metallic. Stands in the right angle as well in the blend areas, and obviously using the blender coat really helps. I will give you a look at it outside. It's not going just yet, so as soon as we get a break in the weather, get it outside and we can see it outside in the daylight. Right then, YouTube's found a bit of a break in the weather, so I'll give you a look at it outside. So that's it for this one. Pleased with how it all come out, and it all went okay. Quite a satisfying job to do. Really enjoyed doing it. Thanks for watching, really appreciate it, and we'll see you again in the next one. Look after yourselves.